All right, so I wanted to do a quick and short video review of the Age of Enlightenment. Just a quick reminder, there are a couple causes of the Age of Enlightenment throughout history. Not on this timeline are the classical ideas of the ancient Greeks and Romans, and you'll remember that during the Renaissance and Europeans rediscovered the ideas of the ancient Greeks and Romans. They relearned how the ancient Greeks and Romans voted on laws and policies, how the Romans elected people to represent them, and Europeans began wondering if they too should have a say in their own governments. The Renaissance was a time after the Middle Ages where Europeans began thinking for themselves. They began questioning old traditions like having kings, being stuck in the same social class from the feudal system. During the Reformation, they continued to question, and they questioned the Catholic Church's authority in particular. And then the fourth kind of cause of the Age of Enlightenment was the scientific revolution, where scientists in Europe used reason, logic, and observation to understand the world around them. And this connects to the Enlightenment because the Enlightenment philosophers or thinkers are going to use reason, logic, and observation to understand the world around them, specifically governments and people. And we'll start with Hobbes. So, Hobbes is the first Enlightenment philosopher. We don't really see his ideas in government today. And again, he's the first philosopher to use the tools of the scientific revolution to observe people during the English Civil War. He's going to decide that people were naturally cruel, greedy, and selfish based on what he saw. Again, he was observing a civil war. He saw the king beheaded. He saw chaos in England for several years and decades. And he's going to make that conclusion. And he said that governments should have one strong ruler in charge, so that way people could be controlled. And again, he's going to say that because he saw civil war happen when the King of England was beheaded. John Locke, he's known for his idea of the social contract. He's also going to live through the English Civil War, but he did not support the king. So he was on the other side. He's going to believe that governments should protect the natural rights of people. And he said that the natural rights were life, liberty, and property. So he accepted this like the law of gravity. Like gravity exists whether we have a name for it or not. And Locke is going to believe that just like the law of gravity, people have the rights to life, liberty, and property. Now, the role of the government is to protect those rights. So if the government fails to protect these rights, the people can overthrow the government. And he called that his social contract. And you can actually see his ideas almost word for word in Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence, which helped spark the American Revolution. Except Thomas Jefferson uses the phrase life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness because fewer Americans had property. Montesquieu was another, he was a French philosopher. He's going to believe that no single person or group should have all the power. He's going to suggest that governments be split into three branches that shared power and followed a system of checks and balances so that no single branch could be more powerful than the other. So he suggested having a legislative branch, an executive branch, and a judicial branch, which is what we see in our government today, where each branch has certain powers that they can do, and then certain powers to check the other branches. Voltaire was also a French philosopher. His main idea is going to be freedoms of speech and religion because of his background. Voltaire often wrote books that criticized the French king and the Catholic Church. He was often jailed for his writings. His biggest argument is that people should have the rights to freedom of speech and of religion, and his ideas are reflected in our First Amendment, which is in the Bill of Rights. And he has several, he's very quotable. He's known for saying, if you want to know who controls you, look at who you are not allowed to criticize. He's also known for saying that he would, even if he disagreed with someone, he would defend to the death their right to say it. So, pretty powerful statements. An Italian philosopher, Beccaria, advocated for rights of criminals. So he worked as a lawyer and he witnessed the extreme punishments for crimes. And those of you that have done your research projects on crime and punishment have noticed the extreme punishments for things like stealing. So Beccaria is going to advocate for the rights for people accused of crimes, and several of his ideas are also reflected in our Bill of Rights. He's going to advocate for fair and speedy trials, so you wouldn't just be stuck in jail for months. He's going to advocate for no cruel and unusual punishment, so the punishment should fit the crime. And he's also going to advocate for no death penalty. And finally, we have the women of the Enlightenment. So there were several notable women of the Enlightenment: Mary Wollstonecraft, Madame Joffrin, Abigail Adams. And women played an important role for a couple of reasons. Often women hosted salons, and remember, these were the gatherings of philosophers and politicians and artists and poets and well-educated Europeans throughout Europe. So they would gather in these salons, again, hosted and handpicked by women like Madame Joffrin. Women also published their writings like Mary Wollstonecraft and Abigail Adams. And their ideas often dealt with equal rights for women, better education for women. One French woman philosopher even said that women should be able to participate in the military, which again in the 1700s is pretty progressive. The ideas of these women helped to inspire the women's rights movements in the U.S. in the early 20th century. And finally, why we should care about the Enlightenment. Well, although the Enlightenment was people mostly talking about their ideas, the Enlightenment helps to inspire events like the American Revolution, the French Revolution. Again, you can see Locke's idea of social contract, where if the government isn't protecting people's rights, they have the right to overthrow the governments. That is sort of the basis that our founding fathers used when they started the American Revolution. And next unit, we'll talk about the French Revolution and see some of these ideas in action.